Here we are, my friends. Another program, Teaching Challenging Kids 101. I'm Chris Biffle, and this webcast is brought to you by wholebrainteaching.com. A real exciting title, bell-to-bell critical thinking. Lots of new stuff. We're going to jump right into it, my friends. Here we go. Here's our compañero, JJ Jive. JJ Jive, how you doing? I'm doing just fine, Coach, but could we start with a simple definition of critical thinking? You know I got worry written all over, not my face, Coach, but my forehead. Well, JJ Jive, let's go with this definition here. We've presented it before. We've thought about it. And we still like it, which is unusual here in Wibitania when we stay with something for longer than a week or two. Our definition of critical thinking is supporting an idea with lots of strong evidence. And my friends, you should only have your name in black or red. I'm sure we're going to fix that online. So here we go. Taught philosophy for umpteen years, and I taught a lot of critical thinking. We need a nice, simple definition of critical thinking. Here I got my idea, and here I got lots of strong evidence to support it. Let's have some concrete examples. Here's my first one. Now, my idea. The Dodgers won't win the World Series. Evidence. Their hitting is weak. Dodger pitching is inconsistent, and their manager is inexperienced. Let's just stop right there. There's my idea, and my evidence is supporting that. But notice this about the evidence. Each piece of evidence is different. We don't want overlapping evidence. If one piece of evidence is about hitting, then the next piece of evidence can't be about hitting. We want lots of strong, individualized evidence when we're doing critical thinking. Let's look at another very concrete, simple example. Idea, traditional education is ineffective. Evidence, 40% of students are behind. Evidence, 40% of students don't graduate from high school. That's a separate piece of evidence. If I had more room there, I would put 40% of students are one or more grade levels behind. And that's the truth, my friends, and many students are unengaged. So again, what we need is a nice statement, idea, position, claim, and then lots of strong evidence to support it. That's what we're going for. Now, let's look at an example of weak reasoning. Students should go to college. Now let's look at our evidence. They will make more money as college grads. All right, that's a good piece of evidence. Advanced learning makes life more enjoyable. Oh, does it? We might question that piece of evidence. Now, perhaps we could say people who graduate from college live longer on the assumption that living longer is a good thing. Another piece of evidence, they will acquire valuable friends. Well, you could just as well say that leaving high school and going to work might mean you'd acquire valuable friends. You'll get valuable friends anywhere. So that's what we're talking about, the difference between strong and weak evidence. Now, here's the question from Nervous Nita. Hello, Nervous. Hiya, Coach. How can we teach kids to think critically all day? That is the question, isn't it, Nervous? That's what we're all here tonight to find out. How do we do it all day? And bingo, bango, bongo, with no further ado, here's our answer. Sockless hand puppets will call one Smarty and the other Doofus. Look at me. Smarty, Doofus. Body, Smarty and Doofusness. We're dreaming up a character called Smarty Wonderbeak, who is the secret identity of our friend Biffy Bluebird. Biffy Bluebird, his secret identity is Smarty Wonderbeak. And we have another character who's going to be called Doofus Bloofus. Yes, my friends. Now, let's look at how this is going to work. Smarty and Doofus. Smarty does the good reasoning. Doofus does the weak reasoning. And so we all of a sudden have an engaging game to help kids think more clearly. Let's look at the next screen. Kids can change their hands into hand puppets and reason about everything all day long. And Doofus says, Kino. Now what does Smarty do? I ask good questions, I give wise answers, I back up what I say with careful reasoning. Basically, my goal is to teach Doofus the difference between strong and weak reasoning. Now, when we say our goal is to teach Doofus the difference between strong and weak reasoning, if a kid is talking to themselves, they're teaching themselves the difference between strong and weak reasoning. And also, obviously, one kid could be Smarty, the other kid could be Doofus, and switch when the teacher calls switch. So all through tonight's program, I want you to think kids can do this on their own. They can do it in pairs, or the teacher could be Doofus, and one or more kids could be Smarty. Give me an oh yeah, I just thought that one up, my friends. Now, here we go. Next screen. Doofus says, I ask all kinds of questions, give wrong answers, back up what I say with wacky reasoning. Basically, my problem is I can't tell the difference between strong and weak evidence. Aussie teacher comes online and says, the kids down under love Biffy Bluebird. Well, I love Biffy Bluebird too. Now, Nervous Nita wants some examples. Let's just stop for a second. Listen to me. Now we're going to jump into how we can do critical thinking, bell to bell all day long with any kind of classroom activity using Smarty and Doofus. Let's check it out. Now, classroom rules. Ask the kids to give Doofus answers to Smarty questions. So Smarty asks, why is rule 1 a good rule? And Doofus gives a Doofus answer. Because it's rule 1. Or ask kids to have Smarty explain to Doofus. Rule 1 is a good rule because. Emphasize that Doofus gives lots of wrong answers and Smarty gives long explanations with examples. So right off the bat, we can use Doofus and Smarty when we're reviewing our classroom rules to start giving reflective answers. And you're going to see as we go along how we throw in the because clapper, the example popper, the detail adder, the concluder. But let's just get this picture of Sure, Doofus will clap for because. He's doing his best. Bullying. Yes, my friends. Big topic, and it's one that I really care about and never discussed before, so tell me you're still cool, Coach. All right, bullying. Ask kids to give Doofus answers to Smarty questions. What should you do if someone bullies you? What would a Doofus answer be? Ask kids to have Smarty explain why each of Doofus's answers are wrong. More on bullying. Bullying 2. Doofus asks for examples of bullying and Smarty supplies lots of them. Smarty explains how it feels when someone is bullied. Do you see where we're going with this, Smarty and Doofus? Wherever we have a topic, whatever the topic is, academic or behavior, there's two paths in front of us. The Smarty path and the Doofus path. Let's dramatize those. Let's engage kids with the entertainment of thinking the Smarty way, thinking the Doofus way. So much more engaging than saying, you know, I really expected you to make some better decisions. Why not just say, what would Smarty say? What's Smarty's advice? Listen, here, look at this. Give me a 10-finger woo. What is Smarty telling you right now? Oh, Smarty's saying that when I'm bullied, I probably shouldn't bully back. See what I'm saying? Smarty can whisper things in a kid's ear. I'm excited about this because it's brand new and it's just exploding in terms of the number of possibilities. Let's look more bullying stuff. Doofus asks why kids are bullies and Smarty gives a long explanation and then repeats himself. Smarty tells Doofus what to do when he is bullied and why it's a good idea. Doofus asks why a lot. New topic. All right, we're doing a review. Doofus asks questions about key concepts and Smarty gives long answers with the because clapper. So, Doofus could say, what's a sentence? And Smarty could say, a sentence is a complete message. And Doofus could say, could you tell me more? And Smarty could say, okay, here's an example of a sentence. I like Swiss cheese. So, Doofus questions, Smarty answers. Smarty's going to throw in because clapper. Or Smarty asks questions and Doofus gives wrong answers. So a great Doofus answer would be something like this. Smarty would say, what must every sentence have? And Doofus would say, every sentence must have an adjective. When a kid makes a mistake on purpose, listen to me, hold it, hold it, hold it. You know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. When a kid makes a mistake on purpose, it's not a mistake anymore. Because when they do it deliberately, they understand what the correct response is. I got so excited on that one, I tossed my glasses down a little bit hard. Let's look at another review exercise for Doofus and Smarty. One child plays Doofus and asks questions. Her partner plays Smarty and gives the answer. Doofus keeps saying, wonderful, tell me more, using the details adder gesture. Here's the details, add or gesture. Doofus does this a lot. Doofus wants to hear more. So you can use Doofus and Smarty kids by themselves or one kid teaching another. Check it out. Now let's talk about writing. Look at the screen here. A child writes slowly as Doofus and occasionally as Smarty gives herself at the end of each sentence one super improver direction assigned by the teacher. Use adjectives or be neat or add appositives. Let's just stop there. I love this suggestion. So, you're having the kids do some writing. They've been writing for several weeks, and you kind of know what each kid needs to focus on in each sentence. So you write down for them what their super improver task is. Kid writes a sentence, and then Smarty says, use adjectives next time. Okay, and Doofus writes another one. So a kid is having an internal dialogue, the kind of internal dialogue we want kids to have to remind themselves about what's the Smarty path. And in writing, let's say the Smarty path is always going to be working on one improvement at a time. You know you've had this problem. Now, my friends, here is an excellent question asked by Melrock. How do you keep kids from saying that was a Doofus answer? Well, my friends, you have got the 5 rules in place. You've got rule 4, which is make smart choices. And you've got rule 5, which is keep your dear teacher happy. And before you even get into this, you will model the appropriate way and the inappropriate way to use Doofus. Also, my friends, if this is a problem, use the guff counter. Explain guff is not only disrespectful talk from students to teacher, guff is disrespectful talk from one student to another. This is a problem not just with Doofus and Smarty, it's a problem of the relationship from one kid to another. That relationship must be fixed with the Rule 4, with Rule 5, with practice cards, with guff counter, with super improver. So the relationship needs to be tweaked so that whatever we do in class, kids are treating each other respectfully. Now, Doofus, you give writing instructions, and Doofus quizzes Smarty on the writing rules. Let's just hear about those writing rules again. So many times kids don't remember what they're supposed to do. Now, notice I got a blue one coming up here. Doofus asks questions about the directions for writing assignment, and Smarty writes long answers. Here's my biggie. It's in blue. Doofus does a writing assignment without Smarty's help. Lots of mistakes are made. Smarty goes back and explains each mistake to Doofus and why every mistake involves poor communication. Stop there. Remember when he took his glasses off? He said this. He said, a mistake made deliberately is no longer a mistake. So a cool writing assignment, I'm so excited about this. A cool writing assignment would be have Doofus do the writing assignment and make mistakes. Like what? No capitals, no periods, bad spacing, not a single adjective, sentences that are too long, sentences that are too short. When a kid is making mistakes on purpose, they're having fun, ha 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 ha, and the whole time, Smarty's whispering in their ear, oh, that's wrong, oh, that's wrong, oh, that's wrong. In other words, to make a mistake on purpose, you got to know the right way. Is anybody out there digging Doofus writing? Class is going back on. Yes, my friends. I can see your comments are catching up with me. Let's keep going. Let's look at a third writing activity. After students finish writing each paragraph, they stop and quietly play Doofus and Smarty by themselves. This dialogue is written on the board. Doofus, which is your best sentence? Smarty says, my best sentence is blah, 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 because blah, 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 blah. Doofus says, which sentence could you improve? I could improve sentence blah, 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 blah by revising it to blah, 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 blah. You see that? You see, my friends, whatever Smarty Doofus dialogue you want them to have that is a rich dialogue that can be repeated on many occasions, put the dialogue on the board and put some blanks in there. Practice thinking the wrong way, right way. Wrong way, right way. Let's look at another one, reading. Notice we're covering everything, bell to bell. Children read slowly to each other. One child makes Doofus reading mistakes, doesn't sound out words, mispronounces phonics stuff, skips words. The other child makes Smarty corrections. Partners change when the teacher shouts switch. Or a really good reading exercise, Doofus reads flat and Smarty reads with emotion. A partner and individual exercise. One of the earliest things we did, one of the other things I did in philosophy, and you understand reading philosophy is pretty tough stuff, was to show kids how if you read with emotion, reading with emotion brings the meaning out of the text. Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. That's flat. Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. We want kids to read in the Smarty way with feeling. Teach them to read flat, then read Smarty, then read flat. More reading. Let's look at it. One child, Smarty, reads, and the other child, Doofus, asks who, what, where, when, why, and how. Smarty always points to the place in the text where she got her answer. Oh, this is huge. This is huge. Because coming up is Common Core, where kids are going to have to write about informational text, citing information that they found in the text. Let's look at this screen again. One child, Smarty, reads, and the other child, Doofus, asks, who is this story about? What did these characters do? Where did the scientist go? When did he make his discovery? Doofus asks these who, what, where, when, why questions. Smarty gives the answers and shows where the answers came from. And Blizzard 57 right now is saying she used sockless hand puppets with her 7th and 8th graders. It'll work anywhere, my friends. Here's another reading one. One child, Smarty, reads, and the other child, Doofus, asks for a paraphrase with big gestures that make the story exciting. Smarty complies. So Doofus says, what does that mean? And Smarty, without looking at the text, explains with big gestures. See, Smarty makes things so fun. Smarty's like the crazy professor. Yeah. Here we go. Next one on reading. Smarty and Doofus discuss smart choices made by characters in a story. Doofus gives weak evidence. Smarty gives strong evidence. I hope you're seeing how Smarty and Doofus could even be applied to math. Here it is. Smarty asks Doofus gnarly math questions. Doofus makes mistakes. Smarty corrects him. So, Doofus says, you divide fractions by adding the numerators. Smarty says, no, that's not how you divide fractions. You invert and multiply. So again, Doofus makes mistakes on purpose. deliberate mistakes involve extra understanding. More math stuff. Smarty gives an answer to a math problem. Doofus says, "Prove you're right." Smarty does so, either verbally or using a diagram referring to a math concept, however the teacher specifies. Prove you're right. Over and over again in math class. You could do this. Come up with an answer. Doofus says, "Hey, prove that's the right answer." Smarty says, "All right, I will prove it." And then Smarty goes back through. When Smarty goes back through, Smarty might be smart enough to find a mistake. Yes, my friends. Now, more math. Doofus slowly works a math problem and Smarty whispers Smarty advice. You know, one of the big problems in math is subtraction signs. Math teachers, how many times have you seen kids make a mistake because of a subtraction sign? Oh, I was supposed to subtract. I got all caught up into adding. So math teachers, whatever you say is the cardinal errors, then Smarty's going to say, careful, subtraction sign. Careful, subtraction sign. Careful, subtraction sign. Or here's another good one. Doofus works a math problem, makes 3 mistakes. Smarty then corrects them and explains why they are mistakes. So just in general discussion, given a subject, the president, Civil War, photosynthesis, Smarty and Doofus fill in the blank. Our president should put more people into the army because we need to defend ourselves against our enemies. So what happens here is we want a Doofus answer and then a Smarty answer. We're doing social studies or anything you like, my friends. Advanced discussion. Now this is where it really gets collegiate. And Smarty can tell their partner to stay on topic. Given a subject, Smarty fills in the blanks. Blah, blah, because weak evidence. And then Smarty explains why it is weak evidence. And then the same subject, blah, 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 because strong evidence. This is strong evidence because. This is advanced. We want kids to be using the because clapper, whether they're Smarty or Doofus, every time. We would probably teach kids to use the pity-pat clapper whenever Doofus is making an error in reasoning. That's a weak because. But we want to get them to the level where they understand not just what the right answer is, but why it's the right answer. Then they're thinking about their thinking. As Deb Weigel likes to say, meta-reasoning. Uses the because clapper to add evidence to her answers. When we want Doofus to make excellent reasoning mistakes, Doofus makes the pity-pat clapper. Doofus uses the detail adder gesture a lot to encourage Smarty to keep adding information. Doofus uses example poppers. Could you give me an example? Smarty says, for example, zoop, there's the air comma. And Smarty uses the conclusion gesture to sum up what she just said. So here's the basic gestures. Because clapper, strong evidence. Pity-pat clapper, weak evidence. Detail adder. Example popper, conclusion. Here's a summary. Let's look at it. Students individually or in pairs role play strong Smarty reasoning and weak Doofus reasoning. Because every classroom activity requires thinking, Smarty and Doofus can be talking all day long, whenever you want. The goal is for Smarty to fill in the following as often as possible. Blank because blank, this is strong evidence, or this is right, or this is correct, or this is a good answer because. Explain why. I'll go through the gestures again. Here we go. My hand, a because clapper, example popper, for example, I'm pulling an example out of my head, detail adder, and here's the conclusion, like the umpire says, you're safe, it's time for the conclusion. Now, a summary of the summary, let's really boil it down. Use Doofus and Smarty to teach your kids 2 steps. Give an answer, explain in detail why the answer is correct. Just look at that screen for a second. That's what you're trying to do. Give an answer, explain in detail why the answer is correct, and then they're doing critical thinking. Now, huge point coming. Use the scoreboard, my friends. Reward energy with smileys, spur on a lackadaisical class with frownies. As I'm wandering across classrooms in America, I see the scoreboard up there and there's no marks on it. That's where the fun is. That's what makes it a game. Who's going to win? 40 marks a day, minimum. When we're teaching at a conference, Deb Weigel puts up 10 or 15 marks in a couple of hours, and her audience is pretty motivated. They're classroom teachers. Now, you don't want to walk up to the scoreboard. Have a little whiteboard, or even better, I've seen people with lanyards and a clear plastic name tag holder. They put inside the name tag holder the scoreboard, and then they use Velcro to stick a marker onto the name tag so they can just go boom, 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 boom. Wherever you go, you've got your scoreboard. But best of all would be an iPhone app for the scoreboard, and that's coming. We submitted the iPhone app to Apple. It's coming, my friends. Here's another huge point. Bigger than huge, really. And this is really one of the glories of whole brain teaching, is the Super Improver team. If you don't know about the Super Improver team, I'll show you where the webcast is, but you're going to reward your kids for improving in their critical thinking skills, getting better and better at Doofus reasoning, better and better at Smarty reasoning. Here we go, my friends. Oh, it's our favorite instructor, Ms. Linenthal. Hiya, Coach. Hello, Ms. Linenthal. Gosh, bell to bell critical thinking sounds great, but how could I get professional development credit for this broadcast and a copy of these slides? I'll be happy to tell you, Ms. Linenthal. Go to wholebrainteaching.com, click on the PayPal button, and donate $5.39. I will send you a copy of all these slides, including your very own professional development certificate. There it is. Put it on your wall. Show it to your principal. Make your friends envious. It verifies that you are here live or in a recording. Let's look at where we make that donation. Here we are, watching ourselves talk, and let's just scroll up. Here's the PayPal window, $5.39 will get you a PDF copy of these slides. And many of you are asking, well, what's next week? What's coming? I've got a great announcement for you, not just next week, but I'm going to tell you next week and the next 2 weeks. Next week, Super Speed Math, everybody's favorite math program. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and fractions. And my friends, you don't have to grade a problem with Super Speed Math. Can you believe that? No pencil, no paper, no stacks of math errors for you to fix. Just kids trying to set and break personal records in mastering basic math facts. Now here's a special we've talked about before. We are making available to you 10 webcasts, which would cost you $50 if purchased separately, only $19.99, and if you want to have a lot of fun with it, wear a wacky hat when you order the 10 webcasts. What 10 webcasts are we talking about? The Big 10, 501 Universal Homework Model, 502 Oral Writing, Super Improvers Wall, the Genius Ladder, 5-Step Lesson Template, and wait, there's more. Prove It. It's our program for state test practice, Mind Soccer, Brain Toys 1 and 2, and Super Speed 1000. How are you going to get it? You go to wholebrainteaching.com, enter $19.99 in the PayPal window, or any number higher than that, ending in 99. The 99 tells me that you want bundle number 1, and tell your spouse you're going on vacation to Teaching Heaven. Here's that PayPal window, $19.99 or $29.99. I'll send you links to all 10 of those webcasts. What I won't send you, though, is a professional development certificate for each of those, because some people may order the webcasts and then claim that they actually watched the programs. More info? Go to wholebrainteaching.com. And, my friends, you want an on-site seminar? You want me to come to your school? I'd love to. It's the most fun thing I do. Have an administrator send me an email, Chris Biffle, at wholebrainteaching.com, and we will begin discussions as to how to make that happen. But it's up to you. Make it happen, my friends. All right. That's our program, bell to bell critical thinking. You see with Smarty and Doofus, you can use good or weak reasoning when your kids are doing anything. Next week is Super Speed Math, but oh my goodness, the week after that, Ultimate Genius Ladder. Designed by the co-director of Whole Brain Teaching, Chris Rexted. It's an actual downloadable program in PowerPoint that you can use to develop students' language skills. It goes way beyond Genius Ladder. Everybody loves Genius Ladder, has tried it. 2 weeks, Ultimate Genius Ladder. Oh yeah. All right, my friends. Another entertaining broadcast. I could tell by your comments that you're digging bell-to-bell critical thinking. Let us see the names of the places. Roll down the screen. Roll it. Where are you from? Louisiana, Missouri, Palmdale, Maryland, Baltimore, Florida and Maine, Arizona, Central Ohio, Shreveport, Utah, Jefferson City, Missouri, Texas, Orlando. All right, my dear friends, as always, you know what we always say. First of all, I do thank you for your prayers for my family. We do continue to need them. We've had a pretty positive week, but these are issues that need ongoing prayers. I thank you so much for that, my friends. It means so much to me and my family. And so until next time, power to the teachers. Coach B, signing off.